there. Hello, good evening. My name is Leslie Struck. I'm the curator of the Local History Archive at Fort Collins Museum of Discovery. And welcome to another Discovery Live Ask an Expert. I'm so excited to be your moderator this evening. I've never done this before, so we'll just see how it all goes. And we have some great speakers lined up tonight, and I'll bring them on in just a moment. But I did want to let you know that tonight's program is part of an ongoing series that is Discovery Live. It's a monthly program that brings the experts to you. And you can join us each month for the opportunity to hear from biologists, chemists, archaeologists, historians, musicians, and so much more. And to learn more about this series, you can go to our website at fcmod.org/events. So definitely check that out. This is a cool series, and they're also all on our YouTube page, so you can go on there and check them out, all the recordings there too. So if you missed one, you can catch up. And tonight, we are chatting with mechanical engineers. I'm so excited to introduce them to you. It's Robin Wing and Charlie Fisher, who both work as engineers at the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics at CU Boulder. I hope I got that right. And I just want to say welcome, Robin and Charlie, for taking some time this evening and doing this. So I hope I didn't have to guilt you too much into it, but I'm really glad you're here. And I was hoping we could just kind of start, if you wanted to maybe take turns introducing yourselves and where you work, and just kind of clear it up better than I can, because this is all new to me as well. So why don't you take it away for a minute?
Sure. Do you want to go first, Charlie, or you want me?
No, you can go first.
Okay. My name's Robin Wing. I'm a mechanical engineer, as Leslie said, at LASP in Boulder, which is a lab associated with CU, or on CU Boulder's campus. And I've been doing this for a while, 18 years, 19 years now, something like that. And yeah, sending up satellites and instruments and stuff like that.
Yeah, so Charlie Fisher, same place. I've been doing this for 18 years since out of college, and then been here at LASP for the past 6 years. And then we send spacecraft and instruments up to space to perform scientific measurements and discoveries, and then in previous jobs, worked on aircraft and other space-related stuff as well.
Yeah, that's what my history is too, aircraft and other space stuff.
Well, that's a good question I wanted to kind of dig into, because this field is completely new to me. I'm an archivist, so I don't get to overlap with this very much, but it's super interesting to me. And just full disclosure, Robin and I go way back. We actually went to high school together, and she's still friends with me. So hopefully she still will be after we're done with this. But I've never met Charlie before, so this is new for me. And I did want to ask about your backgrounds, like how you came to do this, and just kind of your path to coming to this career.
Sure. Well, mechanical engineering was something I always kind of found interesting. I always loved space, but to be totally honest, in school, space felt kind of out of my league. So I didn't feel like I could quite get there. But when I first got out of college, I went and worked for Boeing on commercial aircraft in Seattle and around that area. And it's all connected, aerospace. I'm a mechanical engineer, not an aerospace engineer, but there's a lot of mechanical things on aircraft and spacecraft, and aircraft was a good start. And then I came and worked for Ball in Boulder, and I've been working for LASP now for 3 years. So that was my path.
Yeah, I had a similar path. I always knew I wanted to work. My passion was always aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
So as a kid, I had like an uncle that flew fighter jets, and got to be around that. So that was kind of like when I realized I was good at like math and physics, and I was tinkering and kind of like stuff, like how does stuff work? That was kind of like, I want to know how do you design an airplane? How does an airplane like work? Like all of it, right? And so I went to school and did aerospace engineering, but all my specialties within that degree were very mechanical. They were design and structures and stuff like that. And then got to work on aircraft professionally for a few years, similar to Robin. Like out of college, when I worked for the Navy and got to work on fighter jets for the Navy, which was super cool. And then found my way out to JPL in Pasadena, and got kind of introduced to the space side of things. I'd never really paid much attention to it until then.
What's JPL stand for?
So that's the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It's a NASA center that they do the Perseverance and Curiosity rovers, if you've seen the new stuff from there. And then, spent 10 years there, and that was kind of like my full-on dive into like the space side of things, and I love it. It's super challenging and hard and interesting and requires creativity, and is really fun. And I got to work on really cool things like the Curiosity rover and while I was there. And then kind of family wanted to get out of LA. So we made our way over to Boulder, and I found LASP, and it's great here. And we got to do the same thing where, we still get to build cool things that go to space and do really interesting things, all in the name of science and discovery, which is I've really found is really what I think I find the most motivating and rewarding of doing this, is that it's we're making measurements that have never been made before, or going to explore something that's never been explored before, or we're going to study the Earth in a way that we haven't been able to look at, on the ground historically, and will help us be better informed on what we need to do around climate and all sorts of other things like that. So it's nerdy, but it's cool. I don't know.
Well, we love
going back,
Yeah, I mean, that's so you're telling me it's not just magic that like makes, the satellites get in the air, or the plane fly.
A little bit. There's a little bit of magic.
A little bit of luck.
Pixie dust.
Exactly. Well, that's really cool. I mean, I think this field is fascinating, and I was just kind of wondering, like, maybe I think you mentioned about working on with JPL, and I was wondering, like, maybe what are some of the highlights with your career to this point, and maybe we could even talk about some of the lowlights. I like to always know like what it's really like. So maybe we'll start with like a highlight or something that you've worked on recently that you've just been super excited about.
All right, Robin, you want to go?
Sure. Well, I mean, the highlight of my career was pretty recent, and it was what Charlie and I worked on together, our last program, and that was the Emirates Mars mission, and that was by far the highlight of my career. I got to help launch the spacecraft in Japan. I worked with tons of great people in Dubai. It was just a great international mission. It's doing, or it will be doing, cool science around Mars. It was a fast pace. I mean, all the things Charlie said, interesting science, challenging schedule, challenging, I mean, coronavirus, challenging, all sorts of challenging things about it. And then, just having something orbiting another planet right now is really, really neat for me. I've never quite gotten there yet. Everything's been a lot closer to home.
Mm-hmm. And that just went up recently, right? You mentioned
this summer.
This summer. So I saw that in the news. I'm sure other people who are watching have seen that. So that's pretty cool that you had like you were right there working on that project, which is state of the art, cutting edge, and it's out there right now.
Yeah, it's really something we can both be proud of, I think. Lowlights, if you want me to go on to lowlights.
Sure.
I'll say for me, the lowlights of our job in general is probably just, Leslie, the archiving of all of the data and the keeping track of all the minutiae.
It's so hard.
Making sure you can go back and find it and answer that question of, wait, when did we apply that drop of glue? What did we torque that fastener to? When you go back, what was that material? I mean, we just went back today to see what material we used on something on our last mission to see if we want to use it on this one. So all that archiving is important and a huge part of what we do. but it's probably not my favorite part.
And that's something that you also have to take care of, or is that
Oh yeah,
someone else's job, or is that you guys?
we have interns, but
Hey!
but no, it's our job too.
That
We want
sounds,
something done right.
yeah, that sounds very intense. So
Yeah, the traceability, that's kind of what Robin's alluding to. Like every screw that goes onto the spacecraft, every drop of glue, every piece of tape, we have to like know exactly what roll it came from, if it's tape, like what bottle it came out of, if it's epoxy, and then be able to track that all the way back to whoever made it.
Yeah.
Because it's happens not all the time, but it's happened enough that we have to do this, that a manufacturer will say, oh, you know what, we screwed up this batch of our glue and it had this flaw. It's not actually as strong as we thought it was supposed to be. And then we have to go through all our records and figure out, well, where did we use it? Do we have to replace it?
Should we be worried?
Like, is this a problem, or are we okay? Do we use a different batch?
Or if there's a failure on a mission and you want to go back and do investigations on that, then you'll go look at all that stuff too. But
wow,
it is pretty important.
Yeah,
I
I think
had no idea.
I mean, I don't know how true it is, but it's basically if you printed off all of the paper, like printed it, we digitize a lot of things now, but we still have a lot of
Blue books.
a lot of physical books
Sure.
and binders. But if you print it all out, it usually weighs more than whatever you're actually trying to put into space.
Would it reach what you've put into space?
It wouldn't reach it. Not on like thickness wise. Maybe if you did like end to end, you might have a shot. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I never thought. I mean,
space is really big.
Pretty big. Yeah, it's just amazing to me that first of all that you're putting these things together with tape and glue. So there's that.
So much glue.
And that I never thought about that kind of bookkeeping side of this. You just see videos of like things going into space, and but yeah, there's the reporting, which I'm all about that. So
and there's a lot of we'll design it, and then we have to archive how we designed it, why we designed it the way, like why did we use this here and not that. So for like the next thing we do, or people in the future, they could always go back and reference what we've done and kind of build on it or reuse things as needed, or realize like, oh, that worked, but it kind of barely worked, so we're going to go a different way next time. So that's also a lot of different kind of paperwork and documentation, but it's more central to kind of like the engineering side of it than the traceability, what happens if something goes wrong side. But
all that desire for forward progress, not just reinventing the wheel over and over again.
Sure. So I guess I'm wondering, like, what did you specifically do, like each of you, with this the Emirates Mars? I don't know what the official title is, but
I'll let you go first this time, Charlie.
Okay. So it was the Emirates Mars mission. It's called HOPE is the name of the spacecraft, or the observatory, we'll call it.
Okay.
Right. The satellite. So HOPE. I worked on one of the instruments. So there was a spacecraft that takes it from Earth to Mars and operates and handles all the communication and the power generation and
telemetry
and keeps it in orbit, pointing at Mars or Earth or wherever we want to, what do we want to do. And then kind of riding along on that, we have 3 scientific instruments to study Mars. We have 2 spectrometers there's an infrared spectrometer. So it looks at Mars in the infrared spectrum. So kind of like heat and lower wavelength stuff, or lower energy photon stuff. And then we have an ultraviolet imager. So that's, UV, like sunburn, right? That, like we avoid. So there's a lot of interesting things you can learn about planets, stars, like anything, even a lot of things on Earth. If you look at it with certain wavelength, only looking at certain wavelengths of light, it tells you maybe what materials it's made out of, or what's happening with like a chemical process or a physical process. And we have those 2 spectrometers, and then we have a 3rd instrument, which is just a camera. It's not just it's a camera that takes color photos. So and then also can take images of the planet in ultraviolet spectrums, and the ultraviolet and then the red filter, the red part of the color, are all scientifically interesting, or are valuable to measure what's happening with the atmosphere and dust and water and ozone and how it moves and changes in the atmosphere of Mars over the season, days and seasons. And then the color side, we have like a red, green, and a blue. They really take 3 separate pictures of one of each, and you can combine them to get like a true color, like what you and I would, see life in every day. And so I was the mechanical lead for that camera and did a lot of the optics, mounting, and alignments, and a bunch of other stuff, but generally led the mechanical team through the design and the build and the delivery of it. And then also kind of mid-project, I took over as the systems engineer for the project, which basically is the interface between our camera and then like the spacecraft and the overall mission, to work on requirements and also, kind of a lot of, I'll call it like software engineering, but making sure everything like that, what we're going to build and deliver is going to work with the spacecraft that Robin was working on. That, that when we come, like, because we all design and build them, not independent, but kind of separate. When we talk almost daily, but it's different teams and, people
Sure.
are working different problems. So ultimately, like, we're going to build these things and they're going to come together, and you want to make sure it's actually going to work. And that's where a lot of the systems engineering, kind of that role really thrives. And I've been working it. So it launched back in July of 2020. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it got to Mars just this past February, and I still work that program, not necessarily every day, but a good chunk of my, 20 to 50% of my week every week is still working that with how to operate and talk to it and get data down and looking at pictures and working with our scientists and making sure they have everything they need to actually do what the mission's intended to do, which is, make these new interesting scientific discoveries of Mars.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Robin? What was your
So,
role
like
in this?
Charlie said, I was part of the spacecraft team, and he kind of explained how that's split up. The spacecraft is kind of like the bus that gets you there, and once you're there, all the instruments are the reason you're going, right? So I worked on the spacecraft, and I was for a while I was the instrument integration lead. So I helped integrate all those instruments and get them installed, and worked with Charlie's team and the other 2 instruments teams. I also was the I was the mechanical person kind of in charge of all the thermal integration and the thermal systems. And I worked with a thermal engineer and then all of the other subsystems. So subsystems are things like the propulsion and the telecom, all these different parts of the spacecraft that need to keep things warm or keep things from overheating. I worked with all of them to handle their requirements and make sure all that went together. So that included design and then some installation and supervising things going together on the spacecraft in the clean room. And the mechanical team for this program, LASP, isn't a very big place. We all wear a lot of hats at LASP, which is one of the great things about it. So since the team wasn't that big, there were only a handful of us in the spacecraft mechanical team. I got to do lots of stuff, got to help install. I led a lot of the installations of the instruments, and I got to help with the battery, all sorts of different things. Solar arrays. I even got to operate the crane a few times to install solar arrays, to lift the spacecraft, move it around, help out with different tests that we had to do, and go to take it off site to do like vibe tests and things like that. And then once we took it to Dubai, because we had a customer we were working with that was in Dubai, and we worked with them. So once we took it to Dubai, I helped do some of the tests there and set up and breakdown of the whole spacecraft. And
Wow, so you actually shipped it over.
we shipped it to Dubai, and we did a bunch of stuff there. We would have even maybe perhaps brought it back here and done some more things, but things schedules change. COVID wasn't exactly to blame for that, but and then we shipped it to Japan, and I was a part of that team. And once it got to Japan, since again the team was small, and the team got even smaller due to COVID, so I got to take on extra roles once I got there that I never would have had. Like I got to help fuel the spacecraft, and that's not something that I was planned to be. The team was so small, I got to do that. Work with really caustic, toxic hydrazine, which was interesting and fun. I got to help be there for a lot of the final integrations and final preparations for launch, which was exciting. Rockets have always been something I thought was cool, but again, not something I thought I would really get to be too big of a part of, but I got to help put it into the fairing and do some of the final checks and final inspections. And
what is the fairing? Is that the thing that actually?
That's the top of the rocket. The part that opens up and releases the payload.
Okay.
The payload. So, yeah, I mean, they put it in the fairing, and then they lift that whole thing. Well, they take it to another building, and then they lift that whole thing up 12, 14 floors, put it onto the top of a rocket, and then we did a bunch of stuff there, and I got to be up there for that. And then they roll it out to the launch pad and launch it.
It's that easy.
And then you say goodbye. So the thing
and you hope for the best, right?
4 years. You'll never get a touch again.
Yeah, it is it's a very unique kind of business we're in where, you'll spend 5-6 years full time. That's all you're working towards is designing and building this thing and making it happen. And then someone, hits go, rocket's gone, and you just wave and like, okay, we'll never see that again, ever,
Yeah.
And then
for better or for worse, right?
the hard part is you'll never see it again. So if it doesn't work quite right, you can't do anything about it.
You can't just go up there and fix it. You can't just take your jetpack and.
Certainly not these interplanetary, right? When like if like Hubble was famous, right? Like the astronauts could go to Hubble and did repairs on it, or things that go to the space station you like have a chance to fix. But usually it's all really expensive, and unless you're like the Hubble Space Telescope, no one's going to pay for fixes like that.
Yeah.
That's why you got to do all that pre-work. It takes years, and
it does.
Make sure you fix it there before it goes to where. So I just feel like it's kind of sad.
It's very bittersweet. It's not, I mean, it's a celebration, but it's also hard. Yeah. You say goodbye to your baby. I mean, like Charlie said, years touching that, looking at it, thinking about it, hours and hours a day. So,
yeah, a lot of stress, a lot of long days, long weekends.
Yeah.
Like I think it's a mixed bag. It's generally exciting, right? But there's all these like undertones of fear still of like, oh my God, is it still going to work? We're launching it, but there's still like 100 other things it has to do before it even gets to Mars. And then, like sadness, you're mourning a little bit, like it's a little bit of a loss because I don't know, like I haven't sent my kids off to college yet, but it's kind of would probably feel like that a little bit.
Same thing, exactly. Oh, so I guess I'm wondering. So now it's there. It's in its orbit. Are you getting like? Is it working? Like or maybe you can't answer that.
No, it works great.
Yay!
We actually officially started our science phase.
Nice.
A couple weeks ago. So what's great? You're right. We launched it in February, or no, we launched it in July of 2020. It took until February to get to Mars. And it was going fast. Space is really big. It was 250 million kilometers away, something like that. And in that time between July and February, we were talking to the spacecraft almost every day or every other day and exercising and making sure it worked, trying things out, turning the instruments on. We took pictures of star fields with our camera to make sure our camera was still aligned and working right before we ever get to Mars. And then in February we did Mars orbit insertion, which is probably the scariest part for the launch. The weird thing about a launch too is, like we will put all of these all of our work is into the spacecraft. We have nothing to do with the rocket. We basically like paid for a ride, and we had our Mitsubishi in Japan built our rocket, and you're like, I hope they did a good job, but then once its launch happens, and they're like, okay, now if anything doesn't work, it's on us. And so we spent that, was it 7 months? 7 months or so, making sure everything was working right, and then did Mars orbit insertion, where we're going really fast at Mars, and then we have to like fire our own like little mini rocket thrusters to slow down so that we actually go into orbit. If we didn't slow down, we would just keep on going.
Yeah, the majority
of pictures of Mars as we come, and then as we went away, and then you'd never see it again.
Yeah.
But that actually worked like wonderfully, and then we've been taking a lot of amazing photos. And the other spectrometers have taken a lot of great data. Even before we officially were doing our science, we've been doing a lot. I think our camera took 3,700 pictures.
Wow.
When we got to Mars before we even officially started doing science.
So it's like me on vacation.
Yeah. You're like, we have this thing. Let's just start clicking photo,
So Robin, you were saying something about the fuel, like it's just like you have like an exact.
That amount, the fuel that we had, the majority of the fuel on the spacecraft was used for that one maneuver that Charlie talked about, that kick on those thrusters to slow us down and get into that orbit. I mean, we used the fuel for little things like just little adjustments, but yeah, there's a lot of extra fuel on there that hopefully we'll have time to use after our 2-year mission.
Wow.
Yep. 1 Martian year, 2 Earth years.
Yep. So, but there's fuel left if it goes longer.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough fuel, I think. The propulsion engineers told me there's enough fuel for it to keep orbiting Mars and doing science long past any of us are alive. But yeah. I think they'll be half of the weight of the spacecraft was fuel. And
that's not just gas. That's some special. That's a special fuel.
That's the hydrazine. Yeah,
it's the 93 octane. We fly with the good stuff.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. That's really cool. I guess I was just, I also wonder, like, as we talk about this, and at the museum, we really love our kids and our families and people who come to learn about science and history. And I'm just wondering, what would you tell a kid who's really interested in this field? Like, what should they focus on? What are some skills they should develop? What would you recommend?
I mean, math and science never are going to hurt anybody. I think.
I don't know, Robin. It might hurt.
I mean, they don't have to be your strongest subjects. I wouldn't say give up if space is your passion. There's lots of things you could be doing in this field, even if you weren't super strong in math. But there's a lot of opportunity here. It's just, just like anything, hard work, and getting through the college part is probably the hardest part of the industry.
Yeah, school's not easy.
Yeah. Sticking to it.
Yeah, you definitely, if you want to do engineering, let's just focus on the engineering part of aerospace. Definitely got to be strong in math, and I would say physics specifically.
Yeah.
Biology or chemistry. Chemistry is important. I mean, all of it's important.
If
but
you're
physics
doing mechanical engineering.
Physics is definitely the backbone of what Robin and I do. And then there's all sorts of soft skills, like would say the hard technical skills that really come in handy for all of us. It's I think generally the attitude of, hey, just being curious, like, how does this work, or why is this thing the way it is, and always kind of asking those questions and wanting to find out, I think it's certainly what kind of keeps me still happy to do this and fresh every day. Mm-hmm. Like every day I get to learn something new, or kind of expand my knowledge about a topic more. A lot of people that are tinkerers, they work on their cars or stuff around their house. A big part of it, like artists, like if you have like an artistic side, I think that really comes in handy. Like handwork, like if you knit, if you crochet, you sew. That was kind of a leading question to Robin, but or leading. And then, yeah, I think just a general curiosity about the world and really goes a long way to do this.
I'd say that serves a lot of careers, is just caring, wondering.
Yep.
So once you stop doing that, you're probably not in the right thing. So, and like, I guess, so Robin, I know you went to CU Boulder. So what actually is your degree?
My degree is mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
And there are other types of engineering that people can pursue.
Sure. There's so mechanical engineers can do a lot of things. Like I always imagined I'd end up working on cars or something. And when I got the opportunity to work on planes, I was super stoked because planes are super cool, right? So heck yeah, I was not going to turn that down. But there's also electrical engineers, and we work with all these guys or people. Electrical engineers and chemical engineers, like Charlie said, and software engineers. There's a lot of software on a spacecraft, a lot of software in an instrument. So all of these people are part of our team.
Mm-hmm. And then Charlie, what was where did you study and what did you?
I went to Purdue University, so that's in West Lafayette, Indiana. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Midwest, so that was not right next door, but pretty close. And then, and I did aerospace engineering, but in my degree, we had to pick specialties, and I really was gravitated towards the mechanical design part of it more than like propulsion or other aspects of aerodynamics. I thought it was interesting, but I really wanted to know, why, is this going to break? How do I know this is the right, is the right size to do what it needs to do, that kind of thing.
I had a fun little stint in school in combustion that I found that really interesting. I took a bunch of combustion classes and thought I might be a propulsion engineer for a while, but
it's got you fired up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I almost did, like Robin said, school is hard. I struggled my first 2 years. I had like a 3.0. But that's also kind of like what we're talking about in terms of like engineering.
You gotta
I was like, I knew I loved airplanes and aerospace and I wanted to do it, but the classes were just really just physics. And, I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to what I wanted to go to school for in the first 2 years. And then I was really close. I really liked English, so I was really close to dropping out of engineering and getting an English degree. But I stuck with it. I took a summer course of thermodynamics and loved that, and then had a really good kind of design class my sophomore year that kind of reinvigorated me and kept me going. And then I did much better the last year, where I really got to learn all of the things that I kind of wanted to learn about when I started the degree.
And that's a good point, though. The hands-on stuff, when you actually, like your design class and my combustion classes, what was cool about those things, probably, I can't speak for yours, but for me, the hands-on stuff is what makes you remember that it's fun. It's really cool to see things working, to touch something that you imagined, and now it's real. That's the best part. So when you do those design classes and things like that, you can remember why you're putting in all that hard work. So yeah, just that tinkering love and that puzzle solving drive. If it's a struggle, if you want to be doing that with your life, you just got to remember that that's the reason you're there, and it's fun. It's going to be hard, but there's really good parts to it.
Mm-hmm. Did you do any like internships, or like what's your, like, as you got to your career, like
I did a different internship every year. Yeah, I worked for in Louisville, I worked for a I worked for Storage Tech. Leslie's dad and my mom both worked for Storage Tech back when we were kids, and I worked for Storage Tech, and they had a testing lab that was testing packaging for Coors Brewery, and it would take these little packages of Coors 6-packs and it would drop them. It would hose them down and wet them down, and it would drop them on this little bumpy thing that was just drop, thousands of times. It was so fun to work on all these cool little machines that just repetitive testing machines. It was, that was a neat internship I had. I don't know. Did you have any cool internships, Charlie? I loved seeing all the beer packaging.
I was able to get one internship between my junior and senior years where I actually worked for the Navy, where I ended up working after I graduated. But when I didn't have internships, I'd say it's really important for people that are passionate about kind of making a career of it. Is even if you didn't get that internship you were trying to get, is there's a lot of avenues within a school where you can still be engaged and learn and kind of demonstrate to a future employer, that you can do this work. And for me, there's clubs, right? There's in like the aerospace, it was AIAA, the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. I probably butchered that acronym, but there's like a student chapter and there's events and that kind of thing. And then I did a lot of like labs, and there was a very cool program at Purdue called EPICS, which was called Engineering Projects and Community Service. And I got credit for it, but it would be design projects where I actually got to work with the local Children's Science Museum in West Lafayette. It's very similar to Museum and Discovery. And our group designed like a little wind tunnel that kids could interact with and learn about like lift and drag and,
cool.
whether it's airplanes or wind turbines and stuff like that. And so we got to, over many semesters, right? It wasn't just like you get 4 months to design and build something, but I think it took us 2.5 years, work through all the phases and build it and actually like deliver it to the museum, which was a really cool payoff.
Yeah, that's really neat. I mean, it just seems like the breadth of things you can really do with engineering. I mean, I feel like everything needs to be engineered, right?
I mean, literally everything.
Yeah. So I think that's a cool field for kids to consider, that it's something they can do, that they don't have to be a genius. Not that you guys aren't, but that you
definitely not.
There are lots of applications and that you can really explore. And I think that whole internship thing, and just getting that experience, I mean, I feel like that works for just about any field. It's like you want to get your toe in there and see if you really want to do it, first of all, before you, waste 4 years of your of your college life and money, pursuing it. So yeah, I think that's really cool. I think those are good lessons for people when they're thinking about what they want to do when they grow up. So I do want to ask, just since you both said you've been in the field for like 18 years-ish, how has it changed? Like, have you noticed changes? And then connected to that, what do you see as like the future for your field? It's a two-parter.
What do you think, Charlie? I mean, the technology that we work with has changed quite a bit. I mean, I guess that's true of every field. We're able to do things a lot. Are we able to do things faster? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I think mechanical engineering isn't. We have some new materials to work with. I don't know.
Yeah, for the most part, physics, like I said, physics is the backbone of what we do, and physics is physics.
Hasn't changed.
There's not a whole lot you can do, but I think technology has certainly changed, and the types of missions, certainly in the space side, always change, and each one's its own new unique challenge. But there's an evolution of computers and email are a very different part of our job now than 18, 19 years ago when we started. We had them. I still remember when I worked for the Navy of having to go pull out old, thick binders of stress reports that engineers did back in the 70s because I had to look up some number to use in my new calculation. You know what I mean? And
drawings on Mylar.
Yeah, big finding microfilm and projecting it to look at an old drawing, where now everything's just PDFs and digitized.
It's prehistoric. It's like
it's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, totally.
But it's not very efficient.
Sure.
I mean, certainly, I think the internet's changed a lot. Our ability to, I mean, I have basic questions now where I'd have to maybe go to a library and pull out an old book and find a number where I can go to Wikipedia now, and it might not be the answer I'm looking for, but it gets me kind of down the path that I need to, or it gets me close.
Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, I'm an archivist, so that's my thing, is dealing with these old technologies. And I think it's fun, but yes, it's much more efficient now to just be able to search it. So yeah. And then as far as like what you think the future of this field is, what do you think? What's coming?
There's a lot coming, right? I mean, I think the private sector is really opening things up for us. Some of these things, some of these buses that we have going places, I don't know, things are just, I mean, we've got people like the UAE who are developing whole big space programs, and they want to go to Mars. We've got a lot more people in the game, I think, than there used to be.
Yeah, it's definitely more space is more democratized now than it was, 20 years ago. And I think it will continue that way. I think we're probably not too far away from private citizens, being able to go to space. Some, maybe not regularly, but it not being like an insane occurrence. Mm-hmm. And I think it is inevitable that we'll eventually start, re-explore the moon, and hopefully, knock on wood, be able to put boots on Mars.
Yeah.
And asteroids or anything else like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see it before I die.
I think you will.
I think we will too. I think it's the hard part about our industry is it's very, because it's not cheap. Mm-hmm. Nothing we do is, these missions aren't even like a cheap aerospace venture is very expensive.
Sure.
And we do one of them. It's not like Apple might put $1 billion into a new iPhone, but they're going to sell 1 billion of them. And, we'll put billions into one thing. And
it doesn't blow up on launch.
So because of that, it really is very dependent on government funding and the political landscape. It's kind of sad to say, but the hardest part about what we do is a lot of stuff needs to be very long term, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, we want to put humans on Mars. Like, in my mind, there's literally nothing stopping us technology wise from being able to do that. Do we have designs for it now and know how to do it? No, but we have the people and the technology to do it. We just have to kind of put it together, but it's going to take a lot of years and a lot of money. And that's what the hardest part is, administration to administration. And this isn't anything new and unique now. Is, every 4 to 8 years, there's a new, like, we want to do this now, and we don't want to do those old programs. And they're like, no, we want to do this now. And you're hoping that you can, over time, you can navigate that and get to these big, momentous things.
Well, we did have a question in the comments that's kind of related to like personal space travel. We have a question that says, if given the chance, would you go to space?
I would go to near space. I don't think I'd go to Mars. There's nothing really there for me at this point, and I have a family here, so it's a big trip.
Fair.
Quite a commitment. Mm-hmm. So, but I would orbit, or maybe go to the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's only 3 days, right? It's easy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a vacation.
I think I would.
Would you go to Mars?
I think I would like to, but I think there's logistics, with home life that would prevent that.
I agree. Yeah. We could bring our families.
I mean, I like the idea of an adventure. And I mean, am I like the right stuff in Astor? And I'm like, no. But I'd love to
probably find better than both of us.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it'd be amazing to just, like, even from low Earth orbit, go to the space station, which is really pretty low orbit.
Mm-hmm. I think you can even see it sometimes. Like,
Yep.
You go by.
Just to see just the perspective of just looking down at the earth, and I think it would be, I'd probably cry, but yeah, it would be amazing.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Well, you never know.
Yeah.
Somebody might invite us after seeing this program.
Maybe. Well, that's
Probably.
what happens. You do this, you get invited to space.
Now that we're
Yeah.
famous.
Natural progression.
Yeah.
We had another interesting question in the chat here. I'm sure you can answer this. How close is the engineering industry to time travel?
I believe that time travel is impossible, so I don't think it's
So not very close.
No.
no, it's not going to happen.
That's not the answer that I wanted, but I guess that's realistic.
As far as I know,
I like
no
the
one's
idea of-
actively working that problem.
No one is.
No one.
I doubt. Not seriously.
Yes. I like the idea of going back and undoing climate change. That would be a good reason to make it work out. But I think we got to work with what we've got in the now.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty we can do, hopefully.
Well, I definitely could go back in time and undo a few things. But, how do we learn, right? You got to learn how to make things right. So, yep. Well, we're coming up here. This hour is going fast. We only have about 10 minutes left. So I did want to ask a few more things and then also give you an opportunity to just kind of talk about whatever you want instead of it just being me grilling you. But I guess I just wanted to ask, just what do you wish people just knew about your career? I feel like for me, there are a lot of misconceptions about what an archivist does, or they don't even know what that is, which is fine. But for engineering, what do you wish people understood?
You can go first, Charlie.
I think everything is just problem solving. I mean, that's really our day-to-day job, is to just solve problems. And I think we've chosen different types of engineering is just different types of problems to work,
Mm-hmm.
or having the knowledge base to solve different kind of problems. But that's really the core of it. There's a lot of, like I said, I think the public sees the big press releases and the cool footage,
Mm-hmm.
and the beautiful photo. And it's the thousands and thousands of work, hours by thousands of people that probably went into that one moment. That, and they do it because they love it. I don't know. Like that's one thing I've definitely love about LASP, and I think just industry in general, is people are very passionate about what they do and why they do, and it's usually something that's bigger than us, right? Like I'm going to build something that will make a measurement that will help know more what's happening to Earth and our climate, and will hopefully better inform us to make smarter decisions, or the right decisions, moving forward.
Sure.
And to me, that's cool. And just knowing that, when I'm done, that I did something to kind of add something to
Mm-hmm.
the overall knowledge of, the human race. It's kind of, I don't know.
That's pretty cool.
Get a little deep, but yeah, I think
I love it.
I think that's what I generally, not to speak for everyone, but I think that's really, why most of us do this. It's definitely not to get rich. I mean, we make an okay living, but there's not that many Elon Musks out there.
It's true.
Yeah.
What about you, Robin? Anything you want to know?
For the public to know,
This is your chance.
I think engineers, sometimes you tell somebody that you're an engineer. I don't know, Charlie, maybe you don't get this as much as I do, but you tell somebody you're an engineer, and they often kind of get a little, I don't know, not intimidated, but that's too much for me. You're too smart. You're something, and I think we're just people too.
We make mistakes on the daily in our jobs too.
Oh yeah, and a lot of it is, sure, we've got to have a lot of common sense, and we've got to be pretty practical thinkers, and we've got to be, like you said, know a little physics, know a decent amount of math, be comfortable learning what we don't know, just be comfortable. Really, that's all it is. It's just that ability to kind of to see a problem and not think that's somebody else's problem. To see a problem and think, what do I need to do? What do I need to learn to solve that problem? Who do I talk to? Where do I go? Who can I involve? What it's like you said, just problem solving. It's nothing all that elite or even sometimes all that exciting. You know, it's often just being willing to sit down with the problem and think it through and talk it out and solve it. It's and not think it's impossible, except for the time travel problem. I'm not even gonna go there. But yeah, it's not some elite field. It's just talking to the right people. It's knowing that there's an answer out there and figuring out what it is.
I think that's really cool. I mean, I think like a lot of jobs, it can sound intimidating just because you don't know a lot about it. And then once you start learning more about it, it's like, oh, you know, maybe I can do this. Or so I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I was also wondering, as we kind of starting to get wrapped up here, but do you have any like personal heroes, like anyone who's really influenced you or that you think about for guidance, or you know, just kind of people in your life? Because I always think about, like, you know, you get to a certain point in your career and it's like you got there because, you know, you had help or people, you worked with people, and I'm just wondering if there's anybody who stands out for you that was really helped you out or was really influential, and where you've ended up.
You want me to take this one first?
Sure.
Sure. I don't have any personal heroes. I might say that people who influenced me towards this job and made me feel like I could do it and supported me on the way maybe were my grandpa, who was super hands-on. He was a mechanic for Kodak and just worked on all sorts of interesting things. And he was always there, always, you know, let me stand next to him and help him or walk me through what he was doing. I know he helped us on some projects, Leslie, in college or in high school.
Yep.
You know him. And
yeah.
My dad as well, you know, who I'm an only child, and, you know, my dad who taught me how to change the oil in the car and jack up the tire, you know, jack it up and let me fiddle around with the engine as he was playing with it, and showed me how the transmission worked and drew me the pictures of how all that went together. He wasn't an engineer, or isn't an engineer, but super mechanical, super handy, very, you know, interested in all that stuff. And then, yeah, I don't know if I would have had the confidence or or believed it was something I could do, or even known that it was a job, you know, that you could do, if it hadn't been for those guys in my life.
Well, that's great. It just shows you how important it is to have your kids do stuff with you.
Yeah.
And show them things and not just push them aside, but let them be involved. So, because you never know where it will lead. So,
yeah, I had a similar, like I had a grandpa who was an engineer for Ford and was always had model trains and woodworked, and he let me be in the shop with them and do projects with them. And, you know, I think that just the like using tools and understanding how things fit together and come apart, and, you know, and if it doesn't work, let's figure out how it works. You know, like let's figure out why it's not working and fix it. And then, yeah, my uncle that was a pilot was kind of instrumental in me kind of get my career started. He opened up a door for me to get a job at the Navy and all that. And then just I've been very, very lucky to have a lot of amazing mentors, certainly earlier in my career, you know, senior engineers that, you know, whether they're my supervisors or just people, you know, at the organization I worked at, that were always willing to answer questions and listen to problems and give advice, but in a very productive, constructive way, and kind of also instilling confidence that, like, yeah, you know what you're doing. It's okay. You know, like, because it's very daunting in the beginning and can be overwhelming.
Sure.
You really, even after 4 years of college, at a minimum, whether you've done it, you know, gone to a master's or a PhD, you really don't know that much.
No.
You really don't. You know, you really don't. You learn kind of like the fundamentals of things, but you don't really know how to do a job until you get it. And you learn how to learn. That's the phrase I always use. Like college is really about learning how to learn and having enough like that base fundamental that like, okay, when you're actually presented with the real details and intricacies of this like problem that you understand it, but you don't know, like no one comes out of college can like design an airplane by themselves. It just doesn't, it's not how it works.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's similar for lots of careers. Like you start learning what your job is when you are at your job. So, but hopefully you have a good foundation as you go into it. So yeah, well, that's really cool. It's so fun. I mean, it's amazing how family, you know, and people who are kind and supportive just make all the difference. You know, just to have that in your life. So. Do you feel like you can be that person for newbies as well? Like, do you find yourselves doing that, or?
I think we try at last. But I mean, that's one of the reasons we're part of the university, right? We work with students pretty regularly, and we try to set them up for success as much as we can.
Sure.
Yeah, I take the mentorship part of the job pretty seriously. I'm actually like our supervisor for mechanical engineering students here. So, you know, I'm responsible for hiring them and, you know, kind of their day-to-day work is working on projects with other engineers, just kind of making sure in general they're doing okay. But yeah, I feel like I have things to offer. I'm certainly not like the best mentor in the world, but yeah, it's really it's letting these new engineers get exposure to how it really works and being there for them and answering questions and kind of that confidence parts I think is huge. There's a lot. It is intimidating. It's really easy to be discouraged early.
Yeah, that's huge. You got to pay it forward. I mean, we've both had so many people probably in our careers leading up to this moment that, you definitely remember when people were patient with you and people were kind to you and maybe led you in the right direction. And when you're working with the students, you just give them some work. You try to help them out. You got to be a little patient sometimes, but they do great work. You know, I mean, it's not that hard. There's a lot of real talent in the world.
Yeah, most every student I've worked with is better than I am. They're certainly better than I was at, 19, 20, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we've got
like, oh, you're much better equipped for this than I was.
Well, I hope they're watching, and they.
I tell them to their face. It wouldn't be news to them.
Yeah, well, I think that's great. I mean, there's no reason to be a jerk, right? So, these are lessons across, that transcend all of our job titles.
And I think there's a key part of what we do. I'm positive translates to every possible, not even job, but just interaction you have, is the people that are most successful in our industry, in our organizations, are the ones that have soft, like really good interpersonal skills, that have good attitudes, that are just generally kind and they're on time and they're punctual and they're
reliable.
All the things that you would value, regardless of the job, are crucial to making what we do possible. You could be the most brilliant person in the world, but if you don't interact well with others, if you don't communicate what your ideas are or what your thoughts are clearly, it doesn't help us all move forward and achieve this really complicated goal that we're trying to work towards.
Yeah, especially with this many teams and that much dynamic, you need to all work together. So yeah. I think that's a great lesson to end on. That why can't we all just get along and
be a team player?
Be a team player, exactly. I think that works I think that's just true. So true facts here in our Discovery Live. So, well, I think we're at an hour. We're over an hour. So that went really fast, you guys. And thank you. This was just so interesting. I learned a lot. And I think I just want to say thanks again. And maybe we'll have you back again sometime, because this was maybe after your next big project. we can touch base and see how it's going. So,
yeah, Rob and I are working on something that will hopefully go to the surface of the moon some point in the future. So
neat.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. I'd love to hear more about that. So we'll stay tuned and check in on that. So, all right. Well, thanks again, guys. And I just wanted to thank you all in the audience for tuning in and checking this out. And I did want to mention, this is my plug, but if you enjoyed the program tonight and want to help us continue bringing these kinds of programmings to the community, you can donate to the museum. We always take that at fcmod.org/donate. And you can also find out more about upcoming virtual and in-person programming by visiting fcmod.org/events. And I think that those are all my little pieces of red tape. So I think we're gonna end it there. But again, thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you,
Leslie.